Welcome to the village. Host is Ashley. She's a friend of mine. She's a mother of two, a boy and a girl. And tell everybody what you do.
I am a RN and the director of clinical risk on the compliance team for a large reproductive healthcare organization.
So you're a working mom.
We're very working mom.
Very working. But you still find time to be with your kids and be very involved with both your kids.
I do. I have always thought from the very beginning that it's important to teach my kids, especially my daughter, to teach her what a strong work ethic is, but also important to have a balance where I'm very present at home with them.
Yeah, and that shows. You do a lot of things with them. I joined you once
Yes.
in the horse barn.
Yep.
And that was a great experience. Your kids actually taught me some of the things like feeding the horses and the technique, because it's a technique, how to feed a
There's
horse.
a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of techniques and skills, so that would be really great for us to talk about today is getting kids involved early in learning skills or learning a hobby or an activity, things like horses or pets or musical skills like singing and dancing or outdoor skills like gardening, any kind of hobby that will teach them how to spend their time, especially today with not just kids but the world. We're very computer and phone oriented. Technology is great for what it is, but it's good to also put those things aside, get out there and do something where you can be involved with something outside of technology and the blue light. And there's so many benefits, right? So why don't you tell me what you think about what we were talking about with that and your experience with that as a mom?
So first of all, my husband and I decided to be parents. Something that we both agreed was super important to us was just exactly what you were talking about, is screen time. We are actually pretty strict with screen time. We do obviously want our kids to be able to flourish with technology, but we are limited with it. So they get a certain amount of time per day with their tablets. They do get to watch, age-appropriate TV shows. Our goal in parenting, or something that was important to us, was always to find stuff that would get them active and outside and doing things that's good for their bodies, good for their mind, and kind of away from screens. Not that they can't have those things, but that it's in moderation. We just thought that was really important. And so we started off with... We've always had animals. My husband has a working police dog, and so animals are a big part of our life. We have personal dogs. Our kids have a bunny, and right from an early age, our kids enjoyed taking care of animals as much as we did. And one of the things that I always was very into when I was younger was horses. And when my daughter, Eliana, started to be at that age, she was actually 2.5, and she really liked horses. So we started taking her to lessons. We got really lucky in finding something that she really wanted to be involved in, but she just really, really, really liked it. And so we made a commitment to stay consistent with her horse lessons from age 2.5 until 4.5. And then at 4.5, we decided that she had done a really great job kind of catching on and learning, and not only learning how to ride, but also, like you were mentioning, we would always have her take part in feeding, brushing, cleaning. So not just the fun parts of horses, but also the working parts. And she really was along for the ride and enjoyed the whole process. And so when Eliana turned 4.5, we purchased a horse for her. And now we have 3.
Yeah.
So we, kind of tried it out to see if it was something, because a lot of times outdoor activities, I think, can be really expensive. And whether it's 4-wheelers or just all kinds of things, there's always fun things to do. But we kind of wanted to see if she would actually stick with it. And some people, I think 4.5 is really young, but she was just so committed. And it's turned out to be pretty...
That's what I was thinking. She was 2.5 when she
was.
Began showing the interest, but that's okay that you introduce your kids at very young ages to a variety of things, and then you encourage them for what sticks.
Yep. And I think we just got lucky, to be honest, with something that sort of stuck with her. Each child is different, and she was able to have an attention span where she could go through her lessons for her horses that were like equivalent to what a 5-year-old would go through. So each child is different, but she also, I think it's important to mention for anybody who's interested in actual horses, she's very tall. And so she fit very safely and well in a saddle that is more like what the size of an average 5-year-old would sit in. So we were able to safely, because of her height, put her in a saddle. Of course, she was never left alone or unattended. We always were bringing the horse on a lead line. Because of that, we were able to sort of go for it early. And it turned out to be something really important to her. And she's grown into a talented little rider.
She is. She's talented and she's skilled. So she learned an important skill. And more importantly, she learned how to care about a horse, so to care about another living thing besides herself.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and a little bit unlike maybe house pets like dogs and cats, which we also have, but horses are, I think that they teach young girls especially, and boys, but young girls especially. With my daughter, what I've noticed is that they teach really great priorities. And for example, she isn't worried about trying to look like people that she sees on TV, even at her age. She's worried about honestly trying to be a good athlete. That's what motivates her. She wants to start doing jumping with horses, but she also right now she does what's called Gymkhana games, which is like barrel racing and Western sort of type sport. That's what really motivates her. So she's just focused on that. And I think it's a really healthy thing that she's interested in. And I think that that'll grow as time goes on, and she'll continue to learn how to care for another living being. And they're really hard work.
Yeah. And that's an important thing, is to teach children how to commit to something. So you don't just have a pet or a horse just because you can tell people about it or just so you can stroke them or play with them. Yes, they're therapy for you and they're fun for you, but they need you also. They need you to care about them, learn about them, and be there for them.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of fancy barns in the world, which I think is a wonderful thing too, but we just aren't that. And it's not that someday if she wants to go be part of a fancy barn, she absolutely can. But for us, part of the experience of her childhood was, I don't want somebody to get a horse ready for her. I want her to know how to get the horse ready so that she understands the hard work that goes behind the fun. And then inadvertently, she's really committed to that relationship with that horse. And she understands horse behavior already so well. So it's one of the things in parenting that I think that we've succeeded at, because she really, she understands. She's 5, but she understands that they need their vitamins and they eat certain types of grain, and their water buckets always have to be clean, and, they have to get out and get fresh air, and how to brush them. And so it's been a learning experience and hard work. And we sort of did that on purpose, because I think sometimes in this world these days, work ethic is lost a little bit, or taught later on, or not as prominent as it used to be, teaching children a good work ethic early on.
Absolutely. There is more of a problem with kids getting bored and getting things kind of handed to them and just feeling entitled. And that is definitely something to teach kids from the get-go. Besides teaching, of course, you said that's really important, but there's so many other benefits, right, to learning a skill, especially with a living creature. Even if parents don't opt for horse for one reason or other, maybe you don't live in an area where there's barns. We live in upstate New York. There's plenty of barns.
There's plenty of barns here, but
but even being a cat parent or a dog parent, any kind of, even a fish. That's something that kids can learn, how to feed and how to take care of, not just have something to snuggle or look at. Besides, when you do have that kind of responsibility and understanding, even as an adult, you can appreciate that you feel like you have some more value. You value yourself. You're proud of your ability.
And I also think that what I've noticed for my kids is that it's helped bring out compassion, because they're involved and they care. I like to give my kids the world to the best of my ability, just like most parents I think do. They have wonderful lives, but I also like for them to understand the work that goes into it, and so that they really take ownership in the relationship with that animal. So for example, when we're home and we're not at the horse barn, my children are 3 and 5, and they help let the dogs out, or just little things. Like my son is 3, but he's able to pour water into their water bowl. He loves to help feed them. So we try to, at the appropriate level, involve them in care. And I think that it has really helped our kids bond. And then I think when you have that kind of relationship with another living animal, you see, as a parent, it's so fun to watch their compassion. Yeah. Because when you give them that gift of having an animal, even if it's a fish, my children have had fish, and I think it gives them that ability to feel connected to another living thing.
And that's so important if you bring it forward to, for example, what's happening in the world today. What's always been happening, but I think we're talking about it a little bit more. We have so many issues with race and hate and not understanding what's going on in other parts of the world. And when you're connected to another living being, like horses are there worldwide.
Right.
It's something, or any animal, any pet, it's something that people relate to worldwide. Yeah. Because essentially we have the same emotions as human beings. So kids like your kids who are understanding this early on, if you can empathize with an animal that's not even the same species as you, maybe that'll give you the ability later on to connect with and understand other human beings, even if they're not the same color, race, creed, religion, because you care about living creatures. You care about living beings.
And it's funny that you bring that up, because I don't let my kids watch YouTube unsupervised. There's too much craziness out there. But when you're talking about animals and different cultures, another way, not that they just inherently learn that from like what you're saying and that connectivity with other people, but also, you know, there's a lot of opportunity in learning. So if you have something, and there's so many kids that like cats, or they like dogs, or whatever they like. So not just the horses, but like, for example, the dogs. We like to show Eliana, we use time to sort of like educate her about different cultures around the world. So not just like what are working dogs, her dad has a working dog, not just what are working dogs in America, where are other places that there are working dogs. And that sort of like opens that conversation to, as much as I think they are open to it at age 5, to understanding, like that's a lot to comprehend, but understand, like it sort of brings it around. Like there are animals in other parts of the world and different cultures, and everybody who connects to this same thing that you do, which is a dog or a horse or something. And so there's a lot of learning too, you know, like, because like you said, that animals are something that are pets around the world, or it gives us an opportunity. We were able to bring Eliana to a really beautiful Amish community, and she was able to see, we actually got her a bunny from there. She really wanted to have a bunny, and so we got her a bunny. It was absolutely beautiful there, and there was a large pasture of working horses. And so we took that as like a teaching opportunity to sort of show her those horses and what they do and how they work. And it was just a neat, so animals are always a good opportunity, I think, to have a conversation about other communities and cultures that might be different than what their experience is.
Yeah, where they're from and what they do.
Right.
With their pets, and relate in similarities too.
Yeah, that's something technology is good for, is you can teach them.
Yeah.
You know, you can show them videos that you choose, or articles or pictures of how things relate.
Yeah, absolutely.
In other parts of the world.
Now, do you think that having pets and taking care of a horse helps mentally with like mental health issues? How does that come into play?
So that's actually a really good thing to bring up, I think, for my daughter, and Eliana in particular, because she tends to be really particular. I have OCD. I wouldn't be surprised if as she grows up, she has some of that as well.
Highly genetic.
Highly genetic. So probably
I can thank my family for my own OCD as well.
And I am really very much like that. And so I started noticing some things like that in Eliana. And so, for example, she gets a t-shirt on, she gets it a tiny bit. This is maybe closer to age 3. Gets it a tiny bit dirty, wants it immediately off. No matter, age 3. No matter where we were, we could be in a store and she wanted it off. And once we purchased a horse, that was closer to age 4. We were able to sort of teach her even more so to sort of embrace barn life. And for us, that helped her not only with commitment, but she had to learn, like, sometimes when I'm at the barn, I'm going to get dirty.
Yeah.
And it pushed her through it. Now, that's just our particular thing that we worked through. But I was, like, so impressed and so grateful for that, because although it sounds like a small thing, it was always a big deal to her.
Yeah.
She still is, tends to be very perfectionistic.
Yeah.
And she wants things the way that she wants them. And the barn and caring for the horses and animals, I think, really has allowed her to put her effort into that. And she sort of with work, understands, like, you know what? Sometimes I'm going to get dirty, or sometimes this isn't going to be perfect. Sometimes my hair is going to fall down from it. My hair was up perfectly. Now it's going to be messy. And so just little things like that have really helped. And then the other thing is her confidence. I think that she also tends to be, once she gets around people, she really opens up, but she tends to be shy and a little bit anxious sometimes in social situations. One of our great friends at the barn that we are at teaches children lessons. So sometimes there are other children there. Oh. And one of the things that I have noticed is, although she's always played well with children, she has a lot of confidence around horses and caring for them. And so I've noticed, we just had somebody there just the other day. She really is out of her shell, if you will. It's an area where she exudes confidence. She doesn't feel anxious. Right. She feels like she can run and play farther away from me than maybe she normally would. Her focus maybe typically would be, oh, where's my mom? And when she's at the barn and that's kind of her focus, she's so excited to show other kids what she knows. And it's been great for her confidence. So I think it has helped her with some maybe underlying anxiety, social anxiety, or anxiety in general, made her feel confident.
And it's not just about showing these kids, look what I can do. It's look what I can show you how to do.
Fortunately, she's very humble, but she's so eager to show people or other kids
exciting. If you
what
have
she
a
can do.
skill and you're excited about something, you want to share it.
Yes. And the confidence was the best thing to see. Our first try ever at pre-K, she was just so nervous all the time, and she feels much more confident around mommy and daddy, but alone, she just struggled a little bit with that. So to have her feel really confident to run off and play with kids. Yeah. A lot of times the kids that are coming to the barn are not as immersed in the horse world as she is. And so she feels so empowered by being able to show them.
Yeah, it's a social aspect, too, of having something that you can share with other kids at such a young age. And absolutely that confidence, because I notice with the mental health deterioration in the world today, and these kids and teenagers come in and they're so down on themselves. And I try to get out of them, well, what do you like to do for fun? What do you like to do that makes you feel good? So to think about these things early on and to start training them to already have a more confident mindset and to have that self-esteem later on to then suffer with mental health issues, your chances of going through that are much lower.
Yeah, and to sort of jump on that, one of the things that I think I was so impressed with and continue to be impressed with is, speaking about her being shy, there is a game, Gymkhana is a sport, if you will, where the kids of all ages, adults, go and compete. And we took her last year for her first competition ever. And I really thought that although she loves riding horses, I really truly thought that she would see all the people and just get really nervous. And she wasn't. She went in and she was so confident. She competed in an arena where judges were watching her, where she was timed, and she ended up winning not only her events, but she won grand champion. And so,
remember, she made sure you told me about that.
Yes,
too.
She was so proud, and I was so proud.
Yeah,
I was just so proud. I was so proud that she was so into the sport and so confident that she knows what she's doing with this, that she didn't even seem to see the people or the judges or the people that were watching her.
Exactly, because that's an excellent point, to focus on something that makes your child so involved in that world that they are out of their box. If they're not good at singing or speaking or dancing, well, maybe they won't be confident doing those things. But if this is something that brings them into that space that they're so involved that they can't even see anybody else, that's wonderful.
And I think the one thing that I would say to other parents, because I've talked to other parents about this kind of stuff, is just that it takes a little bit of trial and error to see what their thing is. And it'll change, I'm sure, as time goes on. But for example, she was in dance class and it just wasn't for her. She loves to dance at home, but dance class itself just...
Yeah, a formal setting.
Yeah, at this age, or at the age that we've tried it, she just wasn't as enthusiastic about it. And so we just really tried to find what was the right thing. But when we did find what was the right thing, I think the most important thing we did is stay committed to it. So even if you don't own a horse, because so much goes into that. I mean, just in the beginning, our commitment was, okay, what can we afford for lessons? And then what can we afford time-wise? And let's give her the most of what we have to offer. And then let's stick to it. So a lot of times kids are going to want to go to a lesson, but it's the parents who have to stay committed. So there was a million times I came home from work and was like, oh my goodness, we have a lesson, and I'd have to drive 30 minutes away, but I made sure that no matter what, we did that. And I think that paid off. So once you do find what they're into, it's so easy to be like, well, a different day, or, you know, we'll do it once a week because it's too hard to do it twice a week. I sort of challenge people to whatever you can push yourself to do to help their commitment is so beneficial to them, I think.
And yes, offering them the world within your capabilities.
Right.
And give them, like you said, the most of what you have.
Right. And setting them up to succeed. So that includes what's realistic for you as a parent or your schedule. And so we tried to find that balance of once a week certainly would have been easier, but we landed at 2 times a week because that was what we knew we could do. So just sort of that balance of making sure you can stay committed, but also pushing yourself to set them up to succeed if it's something you really think that they want to be good at.
Yeah, and absolutely offering them the different, like the variety of things that are there. Like show them the different, there's horses, there's other pets, there's also, there's dance, there's music.
Gymnastics, there's sports, there's school sports.
Many things are free in the school, or they take a small fee for, you know, if you register for something in the school or in the community. Some things are harder to find because of where you live or how much of an expense it is. I think with horses, what do you suggest? You know, obviously, if you live in a place that's really city-like, New York City, for example, if you go out to the more suburban areas outside the city, you may be able to find a horse barn or something more outdoorsy. But I don't know if parents who really are in the city think about these types of activities as much.
Yeah.
But if you do, you know, how do you suggest parents then go about finding these resources or finding out about things that they may not really know much about?
Yeah, I think that we haven't started yet, but we plan to start 4-H. So that's a community that you can easily look up and see if that's in your area. And then they have resources. So that's something that's sort of spread out and is worth looking into, just sort of looking at if there's 4-H where it's offered in your area. But if you're just sort of trying to get your feet wet, really what I found, we were fortunate enough to know people in the area, but also there are so many resources, honestly, on social media.
Yeah.
So if you look up horse groups in the area, a lot of them are designated to like specific geographical areas. So I belong to a lot for upstate New York, but we're also close enough where I belong to the ones, you know, out sort of by Utica, Western New York. And people will post on their resources, but as far as like lessons, different things like that, there are so many people all over in the horse world that are really giving kids lessons. So it's out there. Doesn't even matter whether it's at an English barn, a Western barn, whether it's trail riding, whether it's at somebody's house. That sort of grassroots effort of trying to find local people, I think is what I have realized would be the best way if I didn't know the people that I knew. So going on and looking at, you know, different groups and then posting in one of those groups, you know, are there local lessons, any place that offers lessons around this area? People do that all the time in those types of groups. Specifically, I think Facebook networks really well for children and lessons and things like that.
That is true. For anything you need, Facebook has a group.
And they're geographical a lot of times too. So even if you can't exactly find New York City, say horses, you might be able to find a horse group, small little like suburb that's around it. So I think that's the best way to find local resources and then go from there. Yeah.
That's some great advice, you know, because getting kids involved in something that you may not necessarily enjoy yourself, I mean, it helps if you enjoy it.
Yeah.
But if your child may be interested in something they read about or they learned about or they heard about from other kids, they might be interested in that might be what connects with them.
Right.
So you don't have to force your kid or enforce this sport or that sport or something that they really won't be comfortable with, because then it won't stick. And just introduce them, allow them to learn this. If they don't like this, they won't do it. If they don't like that, they won't do it. And what they do like is what'll stick, like you said.
So I think a lot of people, for example, they put their kids in soccer or dance or something like that, and Eliana just didn't. She might grow in a few years or even less than a few years and really like those things, but at that time it would have been like a forced commitment versus like a pleasant time for her. So we just sort of didn't want to push those things, even if other kids that we knew were on those teams or whatever. I think when they're little, especially, and you're talking about getting them into things, like it was important for me to just really go with what she enjoyed. But I think that the other thing that reminds me of is it's not just, horses and living animals. I think we've sort of highlighted a lot of the wonderful things, but an example of pushing your own limits as a parent that reminds me something else that my kids are really into is ATVs and four-wheelers.
Okay.
And I bring that up for a specific reason because I'm a nurse. And that's a nightmare to me.
Yeah. Listening to it for me is a little bit of a nightmare.
A doctor, right? So obviously that was really hard for me, but it was something that my husband got her a little ATV. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy her first of all, it's a very small, really good size for her. But I was like, you know what? She's so into it that although it was a hard struggle for me and like it's not something that I enjoy, it's not something that I even wanted her to be in. But I did what I could do as a parent to like sort of calm whatever fears I had as like a nurse. I bought her like the highest rated protective helmet. I bought
Helmets
her everything I could do. I made sure she was in like the most safe grass environment, and then I let her do it because it's something that and
she's a little daredevil.
She is, and she ended up she's so great at it. She's so confident, she's safe. We got one where you could set like the setting on how fast they can go or whatever. And she was just as into that as horses, and she still is, but it was an experience for me, and of course now my son is into it. It's been an experience to sort of let them explore something that my husband was completely fine with, but I was more reserved about that, having been a nurse that worked in a trauma unit and seen so many accidents and just being a nurse in general.
Being the mom.
And a mom. And it was so hard for me to sort of let her be into that. I will say that it's been completely worth it, because as long as you can make them safe within their environment, kids can fall riding bikes, right? But they ride bikes all the time.
And those can be dangerous if you overthink it.
Right. And I tend to, like we mentioned, think super hard about all the things that could possibly happen. But my husband actually really pushed me. He's much more of a daredevil, but pushed me to let them do these things in a controlled environment. And again, it's an area where she's so confident.
Right.
She's not scared at all.
She likes to get out there.
She loves to get out there.
Push her limits.
And it's
she likes
so
to
good
be
for
active.
her.
And it's not that she's not a girly girl.
No.
I saw her sassy little picture you put up there with her boots and her ruffly top. So you can be it all. We must teach our young girls that you
can have whatever you want.
Yeah, you can be whoever you desire to be.
Yes.
In your life at that moment, on that day, what you feel like that day.
And we try to do that across the board. She loves Elsa and she loves dinosaurs. So for Christmas, for our particular, family, and in our family, we have Santa, and Santa brings Elsa, and Santa brings dinosaurs. We encourage whatever it is that she's into. And I think it has worked, because she loves to run around and get dirty and go on the four-wheeler with her dad and help her dad do all kinds of crazy, rugged, outdoorsy type things. And she also loves to put a dress on and see how pretty she looks. So whatever it is that she's into, we try to foster that and help her explore different things. And so we get a little girl in a frilly top who loves a four-wheeler.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure there's frilly horse gear she can wear.
Yep.
And, women on horses look great.
They
look super feminine.
Yeah.
There's nothing more feminine than being tough.
No. And that's something that we just have really... I will tell you, whatever it is... So, Eliana is a very picky eater. and she's a great little athlete with horses. And so we really were struggling with her eating choices, and she didn't ever really want to eat much of anything that would be considered protein. And my husband had this brilliant idea one day at the dinner table. We didn't want to force her to eat anything she didn't want to eat, but we wanted her to like at least try stuff. And he said to her, it was like chicken on the grill or something. And he said to her, you know what? Some of the best barrel racers have to eat this stuff because it's protein and it makes them tough and it makes them strong. And she's young enough where she was like, oh my goodness. And she tried new things. So across the board, like there are ways to incorporate a healthy physical outdoor or just not like a computer game or screen time activities. There's ways to encourage that and bring that into their life, because when you're young, my experience is like they don't have to, even she starts kindergarten this year. So thus far, she hasn't had to like go to school or worry about, like adults, we have to worry about work. So right, whatever they're into, that is so much of their life and their brains. And so a lot of times you can hone in on that and incorporate it into other areas of their life. Like having her eat chicken was perfect.
You take those parenting moments and those teachable moments and do whatever you can with them.
And you just try.
There's other skills that I was looking at, like some parents garden. So taking your child out to the garden. There's actually a website on Head Start for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The Head Start Office of Early Childhood Development actually has a blog, and they discuss outdoor time and different resources for teaching your child how to garden. But like you said too, YouTube is good for certain things. So
I would just say, like, I think we've talked about this before, but like recommending the parent be the one to choose. And it can be really helpful. But we do gardening. I had my sister come and she did a beautiful job landscaping for us. My kids have taken part with my husband, actually, of watering the plants every day and watching them grow. And this year they're all coming back. So watching them grow from like kind of like how the garden looked in the fall and the winter to watching it all come back. And my son, who's 3, really likes watching the flowers turn from little buds to full blooms. And so
it's rewarding.
If you emphasize that, it's a sense, it's a sense of accomplishment for them. And so I think anything that they can get active and get outside is something that
that's what they say, like being outside and appreciating the natural beauty, like a more wild, free kind of. And it's calming. It can be soothing. It's therapeutic. It's also like a living thing. Plants, teaching them to be selfless. Think about, no matter how tired you are, what kind of day you've had, these plants need this type of care. And to learn that, learning a skill, learning something they can appreciate, and look at your garden or your landscaping and think, I did that. This is happening because I did that, and it's long term.
And even just like, if there's some people who just don't love outside, or their outside experience are different, you could do indoor plants, you could do puzzles, drawing, reading. Even if you live in like more of like a city type setting where outside is just a different experience, you can do so many things that they can get into. So if they're good at drawing, you know, there's a million different artistic activities that you could find for them. Or I know a little boy who really likes math and puzzles. So his parents buy him every puzzle. And another thing for that little boy is not as into like outdoorsy stuff. They buy him puzzles. They also buy him Legos that are really difficult and way sort of, he's gotten to the point where he can do Lego sets that are beyond what you would expect somebody, he's 5, to be able, that age, to be able to do. But that's because they figured out that that's what he really likes. And they get him puzzles and Legos and things for him to excel at.
And it's great for a good skill set and cognition, like brain development.
And he likes music. So everybody's different, but I think just finding those things.
And being able to spend some time with your kids working on those things. They may want you to be involved, see what they're doing, and you can teach them. Like you said, music, singing, dancing, it's some sort of exercise, but it's cathartic, letting out some of that emotion or expressing the emotion. Also, learning an art form. All of us are artists in some way or the other. So getting involved with something like that. The American Academy of Pediatrics actually recognizes some of these complementary medicine, they call it, something outside outside of just, medicine and pills,
Right.
especially for the mental health, chronic illnesses. Definitely they do recognize this as some sort of therapy. So it goes into the whole parenting and teaching and medicines. Us in the medical field should keep encouraging these type of things, because it's not just about like a hobby. Yes, it's a hobby. It's great to know things, but it's about teaching and training yourself to be this well-rounded person who can learn something and deal with what life brings at you, because
Right.
you have something that taught you how to be a skilled human, a well-rounded human.
And I think as parents, especially like you were saying in today's world, and that there is something cathartic about these activities, and also for therapy, I would encourage parents, I think, to think outside of the box. So I know a little girl who is not able to have a dog where she lives, but that's her passion. And so her mom reached out to me, somebody that I had not seen in many years, but she reached out to me and asked if her daughter could come see, I have French bulldogs, if she could come see one of my Frenchies. And so wanted to set up like a park date where her daughter could like pet the dog and ask questions about the dog.
Absolutely.
So I just thought that was so great. Although she knows that where they live, they cannot have a dog. I thought it was so cool of that mom to recognize that that's what her daughter was really excited about. And so she made it happen to the best of how she could. And so she was able to come and meet our little Frenchie and play with her and brush her and ask questions. And she's welcome to do that anytime. But I thought that it was a really cool thing that that mom did.
Oh, yeah.
So just thinking outside the box, and if it's something that they're into,
ask around. If you don't know, somebody else might know.
Right. If there's not a place for them, for example, to do gymnastics where you live, there are great YouTube videos that teach like tumbling that parents can manage, forward rolls, small things, but it's just a way to sort of get their feet wet for something that they're passionate about. And I think that's important.
Exactly, and that's like you mentioned YouTube. It's the same thing with dance. I actually looked up on YouTube. There are some free dance classes to have for kids to follow along and learn at home. Especially, where, thank God, this pandemic seems to be calming down at this
a little,
point,
but it's not back to normal.
But it's not back to normal, and if you as a parent don't feel comfortable with getting back to normal, that's fine. You can still do these things at home with your kids.
Things. Yeah.
And even time-wise, if you feel like you can't drive your child to a dance class and they're fine doing these kind of activities, they can maybe put it on themselves and say, well, as long as you do it 3 times a week and keep up with your dance. And then if you feel like you can afford the paid lessons, they have those options too.
Yep. So it's just a matter of getting them into whatever it is that they express interest in.
Yeah.
And there's just little ways around it.
So YouTube videos, you can register your kids in these kind of classes. And of course, the schools and the community, like churches, do have like singing groups or other activities for children and families. And what other resources do you think are out there?
I think we talked a little bit about going on social media to find places that may have different groups for animals, specifically horses. But then there's also 4-H. I believe it's 4-H.org has a little tool where you can see if there's a 4-H group near you. The other thing that's really great for outdoorsy activity, I'm seeing if there's once we get back to normal life, of course, if there's a Girl Scouts or a Boy Scouts.
Oh, yeah.
That's always helpful.
They teach you so many
things and good social interaction
absolutely.
as well.
That's always a great thing to do. And I remember when I was a kid and the cookie selling, you learn how to, it feels like it's like a business endeavor.
And an accomplishment, and you're striving towards something. So I think that's a really good.
And so there was a lot of kids in my town, which I'm sure it's still the same in many towns, kids whose parents couldn't give them a ride to the Girl Scouts or, of course, Boy Scouts too. And there's always like a parent who's more available who can help. So
yeah, it's always a very like a community type experience where everybody will pitch together.
Yeah.
And usually, like you said, there's a leader, a parent that sort of is ahead of it. And so I think it's a good little group too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to sum up, was there anything else you wanted to mention or that you could think of?
I think so. I think we covered so much.
I think this is just teaching kids a skill, a hobby, giving them something to do, giving them something to look forward to feel good about, to help them become well-rounded, to help you bond and connect with them, to help them bond and connect with the world, with other people, and to teach them to become empathetic, skilled, humble, and just well-rounded overall beautiful people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think anything that will teach them a good work ethic will benefit them later in life and help them not only do well and become successful at whatever it is that they want to do, but it'll also give them a sense of ownership and they can feel proud of whatever they've accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.